Hi, my name is Jay and I make finance videos. And it's that time of the year again. That wonderful holiday season where everyone is in a mad rush or at least thinking about going to get gifts for their loved ones. And if you're not like me and you don't bake obscene amounts of cookies and give them out to everybody indiscriminately regardless of dietary restrictions, diabetes, gluten problems, any of that, you don't worry about that and just give them out to everybody. If you're one of those people that feels the need to personalize your gifts to the person that you're buying them for, well, it's kind of in crunch time now. We're getting to sort of the finish line, and there's almost that mad dash to go out and finish everything that you need. And you might be one of those people that's getting to the point where you're at the grocery store. You've gotten everything you need food-wise, and you see it there, staring right back at you. The iTunes gift card. And you're thinking, is it time? Is it time to just give up and just accept it and buy 10 of these things and be done with everything? And before you do that, let me make a case for investments as gifts. And you might be thinking, how could an investment possibly be better than an iTunes gift card? That magical, wonderful thing. Well, let me try and sort of convince you why this is actually legitimate, something that you can give as a gift. Now, if you try and give a bond or a GIC to a loved one, that's not going to work. That's one of the most boring things in the world, and you're going to get a very unenthusiastic reaction, regardless of how good the person is at acting. But what is viable as a potential gift investment is stocks and mutual funds. And the reason being is that you can personalize a stock to the individual that you're giving it to. So for example, let's say that one of your kids is really passionate about the iPhone. Well, you could buy that person a stock in Apple. And if you have a husband who's really passionate about a certain car company, you can buy him a stock in that car company. And it's sort of a way that you can actually personalize these gifts to these specific individuals. And it's kind of a novel thing where, you think a lot about Apple, you think a lot about Google, and then, oh, it's kind of interesting to have a piece of that company, to be an owner of that company. Now, realistically, it's going to be a very small amount, but it's a novel, sort of interesting thing that actually does kind of work as a gift. And the second added benefit of giving investments as gifts is sort of there's that gentle nudge to start thinking about personal finance and thinking about investing themselves. And if you've watched sort of one of my previous videos where I talked about when to get your children involved in finance, it's not necessarily going to get the person to go out and say, hey, I need to start investing. This is amazing. I'm going to put 20% of my salary towards buying more stock. That's not realistically going to happen. But what could potentially work is that 6 months down the line, when the person goes back to look at the stock and they remember, oh, I own a little bit of Apple, and they see that it's gone up 10%, at that point they might say, hey, I'm going to put a little bit more in this. And sort of starts that ball rolling and gently pushing them towards thinking about investing. And eventually it might work towards where the person actually does get involved and does start investing on their own and does start adding to that themselves. And it's also a great nudge, for a spouse, thinking about retirement savings. There's lots of great sort of ways to push people towards getting their sort of act together when it comes to finance. Third benefit of investments as gift options, because you're not going to be putting a lot of money towards it, it's going to be a very small portion, so maybe say $100 max. Realistically, you don't have to worry about how risky a stock is, because if that stock were to fall significantly in value, it's a single stock or it's a couple stock, and it's not going to have a significant effect on your portfolio. So you don't have to worry too much about the risk associated with it, so you can just focus on personalizing that stock to that individual person. And so how do you go about doing this? How do you go about setting up an investment for your family? And realistically, it's going to be very difficult for you to do it for friends, but it is possible for family for sure. So if you have children, regardless of where you are around the world, there's typically options when it comes to accounts as the guardian that you can open up for them to do trading. And so in Canada, a perfect option is an RESP, a registered education savings plan. And within that, you can put money in and you can invest that money in, say, stock, and it grows. And then with a spouse, you can open up a joint account where you can also put money in and then invest it wherever you see fit. And so those are the two main ways. As I mentioned, it's very difficult to do outside of your family, back in the day when sort of stock, you used to be able to actually purchase stock in paper form, and you would be able to give that. Nowadays that companies have, say, 500 million shares, the sheer paperwork side of that is just too extreme, and they've more or less moved almost exclusively to an electronic form, and that really has to be done through an account, and almost always that account has to be registered. So it's very difficult to do outside of close family members, say children under the age of majority and or spouses, but it's possible. And there are sort of ways you could maybe manage it. But it's definitely an important thing to think about, and it's sort of an interesting idea that is a little bit more unique and a little bit more interesting than that iTunes gift card. I still stand by my previous statements that if you're not giving out obscene amounts of cookies at Christmas time, you're doing it wrong, but it's your choice. As always, if you like the video, very much appreciate a like, share, and subscribe. It helps me and the channel grow, and as always, have a great day.